Hello friends, today we will discuss about Golgi tendon reflex. It is also known as inverse stretch reflex. It is also known as inverse stretch reflex. In the previous video we have discussed about the stretch reflex. Today we will discuss about the inverse stretch reflex, that is the Golgi tendon reflex. Okay, and it is basically a disynaptic reflex. Disynaptic reflex. If you remember that stretch reflex was a monosynaptic reflex. Now it is a disynaptic reflex. Okay, so I'll just directly come to the point in this small duration video. So see, consider this as one of the skeletal muscle. Okay, this line diagram what I am drawing, just this is a skeletal muscle. Now these skeletal muscles are attached to the bones by a structure known as tendons. Okay, everyone knows that tendons attach the muscles to the bone. Now in this tendon there is a sensors or a receptors present. Now these sensor or the receptor which is present in the tendons, it is known as Golgi tendon organ. Okay, the receptor or the sensor which is present in the tendon, it is known as Golgi tendon organ. Okay. Now on the other hand, what we have already discussed, in the muscles also there is a one sensors or a receptor that which runs parallelly to the muscle fibers. This is known as muscle spindle. Okay, we have discussed in detail about the muscle spindle, its structure and function. Those who have not seen that video, I request them to go back to our channel playlist and just watch this muscle spindle lecture. Okay, anyway, this is the muscle spindle. Now what is the difference between these two is, both are basically a sensors or the receptors. Muscle spindle is a touch sensitive receptor. It will senses the change in the length. Okay, it will detect the length as well as change in the length of the muscle, change of the length of the muscle, change of the length of the muscle, change in the length of the muscle. Okay, so this is the functions of the muscle spindle. Whereas Golgi tendon organ, what it will detect is, it will detect the tension in the muscle and the change in the tension of the muscle fibers or tension of the muscle. So that is the basic difference between the muscle spindle and the Golgi tendon organ. Okay, Golgi tendon organ detect the tension, whereas the muscle spindle detect the length. Okay, that is the basic difference. Now how this reflex works? Okay, how this reflex works? So let us now draw the spinal cord and see how this reflex work, that is the neural pathway of this inverse stretch reflex or the Golgi tendon reflex. Okay, now I am just drawing a line diagram of the spinal cord. I will just draw the line diagram of the spinal cord, a rough line diagram. Okay. Now this part which I am highlighting with the black color, it is also known as anterior part, that is the anterior horn cells are present here. Okay. Now from this anterior horn cells, the most important neuron which will supply the skeletal muscles, and when it is stimulated the skeletal muscles contract, it is known as alpha motor neuron. Okay. So whenever this is stimulated, the skeletal muscle will contract, right. Now whenever the muscle tension is increased, so much, when the muscles tension is increased, increase in the muscle tension. So what happens is, when the tension is too much, then this Golgi tendon organ, lies in series with the muscle fibers, and this muscle spindle lies parallel to the muscle fibers. Okay. So if 10 to 15 muscle fibers are attached to this Golgi tendon organ also, this Golgi tendon organ gets stimulated and they send the signal through sensory nerves through the posterior horn of this spinal cord, and this nerve fibers, this green color which I am highlighting, it is known as 1B fiber, sensory fibers, and it is around 16 micrometer in diameter. Okay. So this 16 micrometer, 1B. Okay, sensory nerve fibers. Now there will be one interneuron in between. Interneuron, the small blue color what I am highlighting is an interneuron. Let me write here, interneuron. Interneuron in between this sensory fibers and the alpha motor neuron. the main function of this interneuron is it will inhibit, it will causes inhibition to this alpha motor neuron by releasing one neurotransmitter known as glycine. So, this glycine is released here and this causes inhibition. Because of this inhibition, the alpha motor neuron discharge will be decreased, and due to the decrease in the alpha motor neuron discharge, the muscle will relax. So, muscle will relax. So, muscle relax and the tension is reduced. So, this is the pathway. Okay. So, what is the main function of this pathway is, what are the functions of this Golgi reflex or inverse stretch reflex is, it has a protective function. First of the foremost is it is the help in the it has a protective function. How exactly it has a protective function is, whenever the tension in the muscle is too much. Okay. Suppose a muscle which is bearing a weight, if the tension is very high, that is it is too much, then it may, the tendon which is attaching the muscle to the bone, suppose there is a bone here and tendon it is attached here. So, if the tension in the muscle is too much, then there will be chances that the tendon will be avulsed or broken from the bone, it will be torn out here. Okay, that is known as avulsion of the tendon. Now, this is prevented by this Golgi tendon organ or inverse stretch reflex. How is this Golgi tendon organ? Okay, this is the Golgi tendon organ, GTO in short I am writing, send the signals, and via the inhibitory interneuron it will inhibit this alpha motor neuron. So, the muscle will relax. So, the tension in the muscle is released. So, in that way it will protect the muscle fibers. And second thing, one of the another important function is it helps in the regulation of the tension in the muscle, that is during the normal muscle activity, during the normal muscle activity, during the normal muscle activity it will reduce the tension. How exactly it will reduce the tension is by its autogenic inhibition, which indicates that the force generated when the muscle contracts is the stimulus for its own relaxation, that is too much when the force will generate. So, it will regulate the tension. So, it will inhibit it. Okay. And one more clinical application is seen in clasp knife rigidity in the upper motor neuron reflex, that is clasp knife rigidity or clasp knife reflex. Okay. So, we will make one more separate video explaining how this clasp knife reflex or this rigidity will help by this Golgi tendon organ reflex. Now, this is the normal, let me revise it. So, Golgi tendon organ which are present in the tendons are stimulated when there is increase in the tension. So, this in the muscle tension, increase in the muscle tension. So, Golgi tendon organ send the signal to the 1B nerve fibers to the spinal cord posterior root, and there will be interneuron in between this. This interneuron is an inhibitory interneuron which releases the neurotransmitter glycine, which causes inhibition of this alpha motor neuron supplying the muscle, and due to this inhibition the muscle will relax and the tension is released. Okay. So, this is known as Golgi tendon reflex or the inverse stretch reflex. Thank you.